Don, we've known each other for a little bit over the years at Sundance, and I,
Well,
I
that's
have to
right.
I have to congratulate you on that voice. People know you for other things, but that voice, you started out as
Oh,
a singer musician.
very good. I'm surprised you knew that fact. Yeah, I actually started out pursuing singing more than acting when I was very young. And then I switched gears when I was about 16, 17, got, more seriously into the acting side. But yeah, I've loved it my whole life. And I'm so happy that I don't know, I found a way to get back to it. And not that I'm walking away from acting by any means,
No, no,
but
you
it's
do a lot
nice.
of live theater these days too, and still, I see you doing motion pictures and
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah. I have a film out right now called Lost Heart on Amazon Prime, so people could check that out.
and speaking of video on demand and all those platforms, we've got Kevin with us, Kevin Derrick, who is the director of the new More Than Miyagi documentary, which focuses on Pat Morita, who you worked with on Happy Days, Don. He was
Yes,
Arnold. Um,
absolutely.
Kevin, what about Pat did you discover that we didn't know that was kind of hidden?
He seems like a kind of like a party animal at first, but he's a very kind-hearted person. I only met him one time, not like Don. Don worked with Pat for several years, but I just saw him one time. I met him one time at a karate tournament. My instructor, Fumio Demura, he was having a tournament, and he was one of the guests. It was right before the Karate Kid films came out. I think he was there researching and trying to figure out how to be a sensei and all that stuff. So I met him just one time, and just that one experience that I had with him was pleasant. I had a very good experience. I approached him and I talked to him for a little bit, but back then I was like 15 years old. I mean, people would have known that, I would be making a documentary on his life like 30 years later. So,
Wow, wow.
Don,
It's
you worked
yes.
with him as in your younger years. Obviously, was that a learning experience every time you shared a screen with him?
It Yeah. I mean, I love working with Pat. I loved Pat. I mean, he was such a gentle soul. I mean, in spite of all of the hardships that he endured in his life, and yeah, I never would have even known about a lot of that, and I didn't know about it till much later, and you never would know. He was such a sweet guy, and so funny when he was working. Yes, I mean, every time I did a scene that he was in, it was hard not to laugh. I mean, he was just so funny. Um, he'd crack us all up, and we'd have a great time. But then I'd have all these really, nice, quiet moments with him too. I have great memories of sometimes after the dress rehearsal. We would shoot the show on a Friday night in front of an audience, but we'd do a dress rehearsal earlier and then go to dinner, a lot of times at the commissary. But there were a few times where Pat and I say, hey, you want to go over to Nicodell's, which was the restaurant right in front of Paramount on Melrose. And we'd have dinner, we'd have dinner and maybe a drink. And it was, I really enjoyed those quiet moments with him too. And what a contrast between that and what you saw on screen in Happy Days.
He seemed to have a kindness and yet exuberance for life.
Yeah, I mean, he did have such a sort of this bright outlook. It seemed, which is it's so hard to fathom when you learn about his early childhood and what he endured, as I mentioned, and some of those demons. So I was shocked, because I didn't even know about this till after Happy Days. I never
Wow.
knew about a lot of that until after Happy Days because he didn't talk. I think I found out about it through Anson. Anson, learned about it before I did, and I was pretty amazed. But yeah, I mean, he had this bright disposition and a sense of humor and all that, and yet, like I said, then I could have all these really nice, sort of quiet, serious conversations with him, and I remember those very fondly.
Kevin, in doing the interviews that you did for this film, what one interview stands out in your mind?
One, I guess it's the one with Ralph Macchio because he was the closest to Pat out of all the people that we interviewed. He actually spent like 2 hours with us doing the interview, and it was really hard for me to find someone that really knew Pat in his early days. So if you watch the documentary, like the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it's all his voiceover because all the people that I wanted to interview, unfortunately, had passed away, or like, like Jerry Weintraub and Penny Marshall and Gary Marshall and all that stuff. Even John Avildsen, the director of The Karate Kid, they all passed away. So there was no one there to talk about his early years. But I think the one that knew the most about Pat was Ralph Macchio.
And those were absolutely engrossing interviews that you did. You have such a talent for documentary filmmaking. What draws you to the documentary?
I just kind of fell into it. I've studied karate all my life, and the first documentary that I did was about, five. It's actually called The Real Karate Kids. So I've been in like the karate world for a long time. It's kind of, I feel like, Al Pacino and Godfather 3 when he says, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. So it's just everything I've been doing is just surrounding this whole Karate Kid universe. But anytime I can, have the karate world and the filmmaking world combined with each other, that's like a dream to me. So yeah, the first one I did was The Real Karate Kids, where we follow like 5 kids. They go through the nationals and what it takes to be a champion. And then several years later, we ended up doing a documentary on Karate Master Fumi Demura back in 2015. He was actually the stunt double for Pat Morita for all the Karate Kid films. He did all the stunt double for Pat Morita. And then
An amazing film.
Oh, thank you. Have you seen that one too, The Real Karate Kids?
Yeah, I did my research before this interview, so I
Good for
got my
you.
fill of karate. Before we say goodbye, Don, I really do appreciate your career as well. You don't meet that many people these days that do a lot of live performing. COVID, of course, is hindering that, but
Yeah.
you love a live audience, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, singing and acting, because yeah, as you mentioned, I've done a lot of theater as well, and I guess because I did that early, early on when I was first studying acting, did a lot of workshops and a lot of theater type workshops. So I don't know, an audience, there's nothing like it, and Pat was, Pat was so much like he fed off an audience, very much so. So yeah, I'm hoping to keep doing it. I was doing a play right when the pandemic hit. I was doing a play called Middletown. I was in Chicago for a month, and then we had to close down, and we were supposed to do the play all over. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that and doing some live theater and some films. I had a bunch of films lined up that all got pushed back. So I'm dying to get back to work.
As just a separate question for you, being a musician, do you find rhythms and cadences in your acting, in taking on characters?
That's a great question. I might do it on a more of a subconscious level. I don't know that I've ever actually, consciously thought about, oh, I'm gonna, use this kind of a rhythm or cadence. I didn't approach it that way. It was more internal. So but I would imagine on a subconscious level that's in me. You know what I mean? So for a certain character, I might do it without even knowing that I'm doing it.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It is More Than Miyagi. It is available on all video on demand platforms. If you're a fan of Cobra Kai and all of the new stuff that's out there honoring Pat Morita, please watch this film. It will give you such a perspective on this man that
Yes,
people
it's
that knew him
great.
didn't know. I mean, that he had
Yeah,
these demons. So
yeah,
congratulations.
terrific.
And Don, thank you so much for your time this morning as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get together for some coffee soon. I would love that.
That would be great.
Thank you
That'd
so
be great.
much for
And
having us.
congratulations, Kevin. Terrific job.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate it.